Björn, Rachel, Harry, Frederick, Urs. Hi, everyone. Let's hope everything goes okay because I've moved back downstairs again and I've tested the speed and I'm getting a pretty good speed test. Not the best, but I'm getting, 6.8 megabytes per second upload. So that's good news at least. So anyway, hope all's well. Before we start, today's about the three principles of kata training. Santayoso or Sanyoso is often it's called that in. See if I can write it here. San Yo So. That's roughly it. It's probably double Dutch if you don't read Japanese. But anyway, basically what it means is the three major principles, you see. So today we're looking at those principles. I'll just erase that. And there's some pretty interesting things I want to talk about it too. But we'll do a bit of physical as well today because I need a good stretch. But, what are they? What do they mean? So anyway, let me just say good day to everyone. I'm tossing up whether to grow my beard. As you can see, Rod, Us, good to see you, man. Alan Lloyd, Us, Daniel, Rob De Souza from Tassie, Greenstone Health. Oh, g'day, man. How are you? Good to see you. Francis Gravel, Us, good to see you. Gaza from down the mountain, Paddy Pinto, Us. Oh, you got it? You got so the Patreon family, you should have got that mail out today. I sent the July mail out for you. The newsletter, there's more coming, of course. I just put that quickly together for you. But there's so much going on. Yeah, I might end up, we'll see what we do. Quarantine has given me a new appreciation of kata. Look, this is the beautiful thing. I have to say, that's a good point, Daniel. What this whole COVID has done has awakened us to a billion different things, and it's just, if nothing else, highlighted to us the value of kata and the value of training in karate, and I just think it's really fantastic that we're able to find it, but it's a little bit of a bummer that it took the virus shutdown to do that. But I have to admit, even I have really enjoyed it. Carl, yeah, I know it's you, Carl Sullivan. Yeah, us, Rochelle, yes, it's really. Oh, I'm glad you had a good read. Thanks. Us, Ketz, and my buddy there, Mr. Steve Ketz, he sent a message about kokoro. So the Japanese speakers, even Greenstone Carl will know what this one is. Let me just write it here. Oops, turn the pen on. Kokoro. That's kokoro, right? Actually, let me see if I can write it a bit better than that. Make it a little more stylish. Oops, wrong color. There you go. That's kokoro, right? So that means heart. It also means mind. It doesn't mean heart here. That's shinzo, but shinzo has two characters, and the first one is that one. So it means heart and mind. Ketz was saying, the beginner's mind or the beginner's heart, because in different religions, Christianity, Buddhism, so on, they use the heart in terms of to separate the difference between the spirit and the psychology. And it's a good point, but I use them both, Ketz, as I mentioned to you. I tend to use them, swap them in and out depending on the context. And I do like the beginner's mind. It's not mine. It's Daiset Suzuki came up with that. But anyway, Marco, good to see you, man. Kenneth, how are you? So anyway, the Budo Karate, it's getting there. But we had a little bit of bad news is the printers are having trouble on two fronts. One, their supply lines have broken down. So actually accessing, this is the printer we were using, accessing the required papers and so on, they're having a little bit of trouble. Obviously, they must get their paper from China or something. That's not a major problem. They said that it won't take too long to get around that. The other thing is the distribution. This is the big thing we're finding, and we found that Torbjørn in Norway wanted to send Torbjørn books. I went to the post office. They wouldn't accept them. They said, no, we're not sending anything to Norway. Maybe because Norway isn't receiving anything from Australia, or it has to go through certain channels to get there, and they're just not accepting them. So Frederick in Sweden and Torbjørn in Norway are working something out there, and at least I can send them to Norway. It just depends on the country's degree of access. Of course, Clarence from South Africa, good to see you, man. But anyway, look, I want to talk about these, the Buddha kata. It is good. There's a flip side to everything, all right? If there's a hurt, there's a halo, as they used to say. But the good thing is, what it means is I've got a little bit more time, so I've gone back in and I've started to do some fine edits. And I'm actually, I won't mention names, but yes, it is. It's the same character in Chinese. Well, Japanese stole their writing system from China anyway. So I've been able to contact a few people and confirm a few details here and there. And also I've found some more great information, and it's just given me a little bit of time. So I'm trying to avoid going back in and rewriting the thing, because I can't help myself. I just, I'll rewrite it all if I'm not careful. And, but yeah, it's exciting. That's right, Harry. It will be good for it in the long run, I think. Oh, is Torbjørn there? Look at the shirt I've got on. I've got the young shirt on. The only shirt in the world with my name on it, because no one else wanted one. So they used them as rags, I guess. Us, Abel Herada. G'day, man. Buenos dias. From Madrid. Janet. Oh, good to see you, Janet. Nice. Nice to have you along. And Budi from Indonesia. Thank you. Thank you for coming along. Okay, so it's interesting because we talk about the Santa Yoso, or the Sun Yoso. Okay, the three key principles of training, not just for kata, but also particularly for training. My own shirts, we've got 3 coming up, Harry. Good question. And it's often seen as Sosai's principles, but Sosai is very clear that what all he was doing was reshaping, if you like. Look, I had, and you know what I had the other day too, Torbjørn? I had the winter jacket. It was so cold here that I had the winter jacket on. But by the time I got round to doing the podcast, or what is it, the live stream, it had gotten hot. I took it off and I forgot to show it to you. Of course, yeah. Look, I think, Carl, it's really exciting. And I don't know if you saw, Carl, we've got these logbooks too. These are fantastic. Again, everyone got the logbooks, and I sent a message out to the Patreon crowd. If you're a member of the Patreon, you would have seen that. And we're able to. I spoke to the printer. Originally, they were going to do minimum order of 100 to get the cover with your own logo on, and put the photo here and the forward there and so on. But now they're willing to do it for 50. So we can do lots of 50 there if you want to. Look at them as a way to market for your dojo. Anyway, that was a little bit off subject. But what is this? You might be familiar with this book. And when I picked it up, I've been referring to it whilst I'm rewriting my book and also writing the new book. But the crazy thing is, look at the condition of this book. And see, I've got a plastic cover on it. Well, I covered that in 1974. And there's my rud, you like that. That's my first week attempts at Japanese, and that says 1974, May 14, Cameron Quinn. And unfortunately, that little mark there, that's from a bit of sticky tape on the other side. I'm normally fairly careful about that. But you see that? Look. See Quinn, 1974. So I've had this book, what's that, 46 years. And I can tell you, what has saved it is the plastic cover. Whenever I got a new book, I fell in love with books, but I always put a cover on. And if I could take that plastic cover off, which I know I can, so I might do it just to show you. If I took that plastic cover off, this book would be almost as good as new. Look at that. And that's a 45-year-old book. Urs Paul, good to see you, man. So if you get books, please cover them. It makes a world of difference. This book's 45 years old. Okay, no, but the reason I brought it up is this. We talk about the three major principles of training. This is Funakoshi's book. And generally, this was translated, by the way, from Japanese into English by Tsutomu Oshima. Oshima Sensei went to America, probably translated, here we go, 1956 he went to America. I think he's getting fairly old, but he's my sister's a black belt in Shotokan, and he's my sister's instructor. So it's a small family. But anyway, in this book, on page 40, you see here at the top, what does that say? 3 cardinal points. 3 points should be kept in mind during karate practice. 1, light and heavy application of strength. Chikara no kyojaku. That's what's also called the points of power stress. Chikara no kyojaku. 2, expansion and contraction of the body, which is iki no chose. Expansion and contraction of the body is the breath control. And expansion and contraction of the body is intimately connected with energy, and breath control is always about energy. You can't control the breath without controlling the energy. Urs Daniel, good to see you. Urs. And the third one, fast and flow movements of techniques. Waza no kankyu. The Waza no kankyu is the points of power stress, wasn't it? Waza no kankyu no chikara no kyojaku. Yes. So that's the 3 points are right there. So the Waza no kankyu is what he called, what did I call it? Fast and flow movements of techniques. Yeah, we call that the tempo of techniques. When I translated soul size, I called it the tempo of techniques. So that's interesting that it's here. Let me just read what he says. Although there are those who in their karate practice apply strength excessively or indiscriminately in rapid motions, application of great strength does not indicate rapid progress in learning, and the use of strength in continuous rapid motion does not mean that one is skilled. Rather, in doing the kata, one must learn to apply strength where it is called for and not otherwise, to move quickly when necessary and to slow down when appropriate. Anyone who's ever fought a tournament will know that. Oh, you've got one, cool. Anyone who's ever fought a tournament will know that is, there's a time and place for everything, and you manage your energy, you manage your breath control, and then when you move in, you're able to go in for the kill, so to speak. You see that opening, bang, you see that crack. Okay, of course. Pal, green slows, keep the writing. Buddha has no boundaries. Yeah, that's true. Hugo, good to see you, man. Us didn't see your name there. Daniel, Rochelle, you have one. Cool. Okay, so let's continue. Just what he says. The most important factors underlying proper regulation of strength and speed are the 3 points enumerated here. In order really to apply the points, degree of strength, expansion and contraction of the body, and fast and slow movements of a technique correctly, it is necessary that one fully understands the particular features of this kata and the meaning of each technique in it. Only after drinking in deeply the significance of these 3 main points will one be able to practice the kata correctly. Of course. So that's a fair point. I would add that it's not about drinking in those deeply and then doing the kata. It's about doing the kata and experiencing those as you go. Okay, so when I spoke about them in my book, there's also, before I go deeply into soul size 3 points, Bogdan, well, it's good to see you. Thanks for coming along. Before I go deeply into soul size, 3 major principles, there's always different. There's San Yoso and Santai Yoso. And Santai Yoso is the 3 major principles. San Yoso is the 3 principles. So I'm still tossing up whether to keep it as San Yoso or Santai Yoso as I always had it. But anyway, it doesn't matter. But in the process, when I did a Google search for San Yoso the other day, I found 3 interesting points. Now there's Shingi Tai again, as we know. I haven't seen Mike's name pop up. I hope he's not flooded out over there. But if Mike was here, everyone knows what I'm talking about, the author of Shingi Tai. But you have these 3 points in relation to Shin, the mind, the heart, in relation to Ki, technique, and in relation to Tai, the body as well. So actually you could probably go into 9 points there. But I found these 3 points, San Yoso, and I only quickly wrote them down. I cut and pasted. They're in Japanese, so I'm going to have to read them and translate them as I go. Mune o hiraki, kata o sageru koto. So mune means expand your chest, but drop your shoulders. Remember, Solsai said 90% of all technical problems can be related to excessive tension in the shoulders. Relax the shoulders. So this 3 points, and I don't even recall the exact website I got it from. I'm not gonna. Well, maybe I mentioned in the book. I haven't really thought about that. But anyway, I just wrote them down for today more than anything. First is Mun o Hiraki, expand the chest. Kata o sageru koto. Relax the shoulders, drop the shoulders. Okay. The next one, the second one is Mel, and they're doing 6 here. They're sneaky. They've got 3 points, but 2 on each point. Mel tsuyoku hiraki, which means open the eyes wide, strongly, and ago hiku koto. So in other words, don't judge your chin out and don't. Solsai disagreed. Solsai used to say, half close your eyes a little bit, because if you open your eyes too much, it can affect your vision a little too much. But what he used to do is say, just close your eyes a little bit and you don't have to blink as much for a start. Okay? Meo tsuyoku hiraki, open your eyes, which could be the same as what we talk about is your gaze. Make sure your gaze is correct. And ago hiku koto, withdraw your chin. In other words, don't stick the chin out. So you're expanding the chest. Don't you expand, but you drop the chin slightly. So seika tanden ni chikara o ire. So seika tanden ni chikara o ire. Talked about that. Put strength in the lower point, the single point of the lower abdomen. Ashi wa tsuyoku fumitatsu koto. And stand firmly on your legs. Okay, so that's interesting too. I thought I'd add that. It's 3 interesting points. The main thing I wanted to talk about today, and I'm going to get up and I'm going to do a little bit of a stretch, and I've peeled some cards off. Let me just. How many is that? Yeah, I just dropped them all. Okay, so we'll do a few cards as well. And have a bit of a stretch just because I could do with it. Honestly, I've been going flat strap on the book in the mornings for the last week, which I'm embarrassed about, but that's life. Ankur Day. Us, thanks for coming. Roll the Hara. Okay, I'm going to look through them too. See if it's too hard, I'm not going to do them. You can do them if it's too hard. I'll watch 1, 2. Haven't got to peel off. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Pretty good so far. There's a couple of hearts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 13, 14. Oh, more hearts. Okay, let me mix these up a little bit. So we'll have a bit of a stretch, do some cards, and I want to just basically run through a couple of points about these 3 points. Waza no kankyu. I translate that as tempo of technique. Chikara no kyojaku, which is the points of power stress. When to make strength hard, when to make it soft. And iki no chose, control. But remember, I was saying before that breath control is virtually 100, and I say virtually because I'm just being politically correct because I don't know. But in my mind, they're 100%, but maybe someone else has an alternate view. Iki no chose, breath control is virtually 100% related to energy control, because when you control the breath, you actually control the energy, because it's the breath that determines so much. Okay, so let's have a bit of a stretch and do some cards. Oh, my legs are sore from sitting the sofa. And if you have any questions or comments about the 3 points, put them there. If you're not doing the cards, you should be. If you're not stretching, you should be. Okay, well, thanks for joining in. Please, it's me, son, she. If you don't join in, I understand that, because we've hardly done any training lately. Squatting, it's me, son, she, it's me, son, she, it's me, son. She, hips, it's me, son, hunter, it's me, son, double shoulder width. Oh, did anyone catch Oishi Hunshi's session yesterday? It was great. This guy is 20 years old and he still does a side kick at about 60 degrees, not 90, not 45. What's that? That's more like 15 degrees up. So amazing. But anyway, he did the session yesterday. We're going to switch. Remember, there's another little thing everywhere. Hunshi pointed this out to me, actually. Every little thing counts. So when you're doing this warm-up, it's very easy to start to just swing and go like this, and I fall into that troop too. But what he says is, they call this shote. So you're taking your palm all the way to your instep, and that will make sure that you've got a measured length each time you don't get slack. And hitch, knee, sun, kick, go, hook, hitch, touch, good, minutes, knee, sun, knee, sun, knee, sun, she, knee, sun. To the right, it's knee, sun, she, left, it's knee, sun, she, but it's knee, sun, she. Just a quick warm up, because I talk too long. Stretching. Remember, come inside, go low, let gravity do the work. Breathe in. Relax, take the weight underside. Concentrate on the tanden. Knee. Remember, if you're young and fit, you don't put your knee on the ground. Push forward. Hip flexor stretch. Sun. Right around. Point. Come on the inside, not on the outside. Breathe in. As you breathe out, you drop the concentration to the tanden and the underside on your arms. It's interesting, those 3 points, it said relax the shoulders. The point is, if you put your weight underside, if you put the weight on the bottom of your muscles, you'll always have relaxation. It's only when you start to lift the concentration, the top of the muscles, that you get tensed up. Switch sides. So any stretching, that's a good rule of thumb, is drop the concentration at the seika tanden. As you breathe in, relax and put the other side. Let gravity do the work. Right? Remember, these are the muscles we're stretching. Some. Shikodachi. Breathe in. Left shoulder forward. Breathe in. Right shoulder forward. Breathe in. Both arms down, nice and deep. Don't let the butt stick up in the air. Shikobumi. Itch. Good, standing up. Good. Migi Sanshin, that's good. Good. Mashuke. If you're not sure how to do it, this is when you learn. Need sun to the left. Use it as a stretch as you develop an understanding of the technique. Sheep. Go. Left behind. Rook. Pitch. Cards. Breathe in. Oop. My knee tweak. And relax. Breathe out. And take it off. Shoulders itch. Yeah, so I'm going to do some of the cards now, not a whole deck. I haven't got time for a whole deck. What do we got? Oh, Mike, of course, glad you made it. Tall window, the sun is actually shining here today. Just failed once again to be in two places. Now, if we do have problems, talk about the same thing on how they stretch. Oh, that's interesting. I'll be interested to have a look at that. Put a link there. I might have a look at it later. Anyway, thanks for coming, Mike. Good to see your name pop up. We were just talking about the 3 points. Waza no kankyu, iki no chosei, chikara no kyojaku. Waza no kankyu, timing and technique. Iki no chosei, breath control, chikara no kyojaku, points of power stress. But anyway, I know that this is originally from Funakoshi Gichin, but I'm sure that it's present in Okinawan Goju as well. Anyway, so let's get some cards done here. I don't know how many we'll do. Might do all of these or some of these. Okay, I'm going to trick myself. I'm going to turn them upside down. There we go. Clubs. 10. 10 squats. Itch. 8. Sun. Sheep. Go. Rook. Itch. Touch. Cube. Cube. Next one. 5 hearts. 5 burpees. Let's go. Itch. 8. Sun. Shake. Go. 4 clubs. 4 clubs. Itch. 8. Sun. Shake. Sit-ups. Diamonds. King of diamonds. There's actually a queen of diamonds straight after. So that's a total of 25. So let's just do 25 sit-ups straight away. Itch. Sun. Go. Look. Itch. Touch. Twist them if you like. Itch. Leg. Sun. Shake. Go. Look. Itch. Touch. Cube. Recube. Itch. Leg. Sun. Shake. Go. Push-ups. 4. Remember, no hands. So from here to go to push-up position, all we do is we fold the legs, rock forward, whoop, rock forward, and go into push-ups. We'll move back a bit for you. Only 4. King. Clubs. So that's 13 squats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. You young guns, if you're a teenager in your 20s, try and double everything I do. 9:30. Spades. Jack of spades. That's 11 push-ups. Bitch. Son. Chi. Go. Look. Bitch. Touch. Kill. Kill. Bitch. 6 diamonds. Sit-ups. Bitch. Knee. Son. Chi. Go. Dog. 2 hearts. Remember, standing up, no hands. It's an exercise to be a smarty. It's a really practical thing to know, because sometimes when you're under pressure, a ground situation where someone comes up towards you and you control them, and as you go to sweep them. In other words, if you could imagine someone standing right here, I have their leg here, or maybe I have them hooking like that, from hooking the ankle, pushing the knee, or hooking the ankle, pushing the knee. Now, if my hands are occupied, I can't get up and use my hands, but I need to make sure as they start to escape, I maintain contact with them like sticking hands. Instead of sticking hands, it's a sticking body. So that's why when I get up, I need to be able to fold and move forward and move on without using my hands. 2 burpees. 1, 2. Let's quickly get these out of the way. 6 push-ups. 6 push-ups. Hitch, knee, son, chi, go. Oh, 6 burpees. I'm just mixing it up there a little bit. I want to get those burpees. So 6 burpees. Hitch. 8. Son. Sheep. Go. Dog. 10 push-ups. Straight up the burpees. Knee, son, he, look, hitch, punch, jump, give. 2 sit-ups. Hitch, knee. And 5 push-ups, last one. Hitch, knee, son, he, go. Easy peasy, that one. Wasn't too bad. Got a few hearts, but nothing major. So that's good news. Okie doke. Torbjörn. If you're late, you've got to do push-ups. Good on you. Torbjörn, tell me about the variation, Torbjörn. There's lots of variations. We do it sometimes in the class, for example, when we're doing a pretty solid workout, we'll pile them all together. So we'll divide the deck into half and we'll only mix up, say, squats and burpees on one side, push-ups and sit-ups on the other side. And that way you squeeze them in, it's even harder. Sometimes we'll do the whole deck without the burpees, which is good for you're recovering, or it's a little bit too hard for you, or something like that if you're racing. Lots of different ways, Torbjörn, but I want to know your variation. Okay, anyway, let's get going. 3 points of the 3 principles of training. I'll read this first. Training aimed at perfection of kata, one's concentration should be fully absorbed in that kata. It should not be thinking of anything else, even other aspects of karate. The mind is thus absorbed. One can practice even a simple movement, for example, the first 5 steps of the first kata, Taikyoku-ichi, without becoming at least bit mentally fatigued. For many hours, the deep single-minded concentration turns the kata training into a form of moving meditation with profound effects. That whole idea of, good on you, Ken. Good to see you, man. Thanks for coming. That concept of a moving meditation it's a phrase I've heard thrown around. I don't really like it because it's not really a moving meditation. It just sounds poetically nice. What it is a form of moving concentration. A big difference between meditation and concentration. But anyway, sticking with that phrase, moving meditation, that's fine. That really focuses on the concept of using breath control. Variation of cards closed, number of squats, yes. Cards of proceeding. Oh, now you're turning into a bully, Torbjörn. Hearts, number of burpees, value of the card. I see. So it's because it's easier. You say just add them. Spades, number of push-ups, and equals the value of card. Okay, so yeah, for the squats, because they're easy, you say just do them plus the previous one. Well, that's a pretty smart idea too. Diamonds, number of sit-ups, crunches, value card, times the value. Yeah, there you go. Look, this is fantastic. You should take notes of that, everyone. That way you do the whole deck you yourself. Well, we do 100. You turn the ace into 10, it becomes 100 push-ups and 100 burpees, but you can get between 500 and 1,000 crunches. That's so good. That's a good way too. That's very good. So there's another variation. Thanks for that. But I'm completely going to ignore it. But I'll pass it on to the students, that's for sure. Look, there's lots of different ways you can do it. The concept of moving meditation is 100% focused on the idea of breath control and moving in coordination with the breath. Now, that's a really important thing to remember, because breaking down a kata into its component parts is really, really valuable to teach. Okay, I'll do that in a sec. I'll show you what I mean. Sosei Masoyama practiced 100 kata every day during his mountain training. That way, and if you know the kata Nai Hanshin. How do we use the cards in training? Good question. I'll get to that again. If I forget, ask me again in 5 minutes. But if you know the kata, this one, Nai Hanshin, boom, 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 bam. Beautiful kata. That's my go-to kata at the moment. That's the one I'm working on, along with Tensho, of course. Tensho is like everything. Tensho, when I'm working on, it's also said you only need to work on 2 kata. I wish I had his book here. I'd read it direct, but I've quoted it in my book. He said you only really need to work on 2 kata. Any more than that is a bit of an overkill. But at any time, work on 2. Well, for me, it's always a kata plus Tensho, a kata plus Tensho. So in the morning when we train, on the days that we do, which is most days, I've had a week off. What we do is we do a kata plus Tensho. We'll do Sanshin plus Tensho. We'll do Saiha plus Tensho. That's just my personal choice, because I think Tensho is so important, because it teaches so many really important control systems as you go. So he practiced 100 kata every day during his mountain training. The way he did this was to plan his training sessions around the 3 specific concepts known as the 3 major principles of kata training. These key training principles should be considered separately as well as together in relation to all kata techniques. Together, they all provide the fabric on which your kata mastery can be woven. According to Sozo Masayama, these three principles handed down from Okinawan tradition are waza no kankyu, tempo of technique, chikara no kyojaku, points of power stress, iki no chose, breath control. These principles are described by Funakoshi Gichin as the three cardinal points. The first he described as fast and slow movements in techniques, or we call that waza no kankyu, or tempo of techniques. The second, light and heavy application of strength, which is chikara no kyojaku, point of power stress. He calls it the light and heavy application of strength. You can see how it's difficult sometimes to translate certain phrases and concepts from one language to another. Sometimes really easy, sometimes quite difficult. The third, relating to breath, is described as the expansion and contraction of the body. Funakoshi explains the application of these 3 points, and I read that before, straight from his book. Let us look at each point individually to grasp their meaning more fully. By concentrating on the master's 3 points as outlined below, control in kata will come rapidly. All right, look, I'm not going to read them to you, and we have got them here. I may go back to it, but one of the areas that I wanted to really look at was particularly using the breath as a form of teaching, because teaching the kata, I think one of the problems that people have is they think that knowing the moves indicates you know the kata, and anyone who's ever taught karate knows this. Knowing the moves is the first step. It's literally like learning how to write. You know, you don't go, oh, I know how to write now, let me write a novel. It's got nothing to do with it. Okay, so the first step is to know the moves. Now, to know the moves, one of the best ways you can do it as a teacher is to break down those moves into multiple steps. So, for example, when you go the first move, let's say, out of Maikyoku, Sonoichi, okay, Yoi, 1, 2. There's your first move broken down into 2. You could break it down into 3 if you like. The first one is Yoi, because Yoi requires a certain focus. Yoi, you're conscious there. 1. Make sure everything's in the right place at the right time. Feet are in the right position so that when I turn my hips, 2, and I end up in the correct position now. Check everything and then go back. One of the worst things you can do is check as you do it. You've got to separate the act of checking your technique with the act of doing it. And that's one of the reasons why I'm always wary of mirrors, particularly mirrors in front, because, and if you get what I mean by this, when you practice in front of a mirror, your consciousness goes into the image. It doesn't, you lose biofeedback. It's a subtle thing. But when you watch yourself in a mirror, your consciousness goes into the reflection. It's not in your body. So if you have a mirror in front of you at training, you walk into someone's dojo, they have one, or maybe your dojo has one, 100% fine. There's a really good way to use it. But when you're doing training, whatever you do, don't look at your reflection. You look above the mirror, or you look down, or you don't look at your own reflection. Otherwise, your consciousness goes out of that. I advise learning Daniel. Let's look at Abel's question first. We use this way, and the simplest way we do it, Abel, is this. On a hard session night, when we're doing fitness work, I think Carl Sullivan there from Greenstone, I'm sure you attended some of our hard sessions where we'll do the deck of cards. Have you ever been along, Carl, to one of our sessions where we're doing the cards? Let me know if you have. But we'll do the deck of cards on a hard night. What we'll do is we'll shadow spar. Boom. And then everyone will go around in a circle around the dojo. And then we'll just, as we're walking, we're shadow sparring. And then I'll be in the middle and I'll call the deck. Remember, if I want to do the hard session, I'll slow everyone down. My objective isn't to do session with the young guys. My objective is to push the young guys so they go out of their comfort zone. If I was doing it with them, I'd be out of my comfort zone and they'd be yawning. Okay, so I'm in the middle and I'm throwing these cards down, bang, bang, bang. And what'll happen is it's a race. It's a race to finish every card. When you hear that card, bang, you've already finished. So bang, 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 bang. And then we'll do that at the beginning of a hard session. Okay, another way we do it in the standard class is that there's two ways we do it. We'll do on a night where we're doing rounds. We're doing timed rounds, 2-minute rounds, let's say. What we'll do is we'll do a round and we'll start the deck of cards and we'll punch out as many as we can in that 2-minute round, Abel. And then what we'll do is the next round we'll do, whether we're doing pad work or kumite work or whatever. Then the next round we go back to the deck of cards again for another round. Then the third round, that's the third round. Then the fourth round we'll go back, we're kicking pads or whatever we're doing. Then the fifth round, so every second round, that's the third, every second round what we're doing is 2 minutes of deck of cards until we finish the deck of cards. Another way we do it is we'll divide the deck up into 4, let's say, or 3 or 2, doesn't matter. And then what we'll do is we'll do that quarter of the deck, then we'll get back to doing normal training. And then we'll do the next quarter, and then we'll just time those. We'll do 1 quarter every 15 minutes or so. Usraj, Kumar, good to see you. Namaste all the way from Nepal. Okay, now let me go back up here to Daniel. Would you advise learning Tensho earlier on or once it's grading kata? Well, we do Sanshin from down low, but we do it without Ibuki. So we'll only introduce the Ibuki when it's time for the grading, but we'll teach Sanshin from an earlier level because it's such a simple kata. Well, we kind of do the same thing with Tensho, but we don't actually do it as the Tensho kata. We'll do the Tensho movements. So when we're doing self-defense, we go, hey, buddy, I don't want trouble, boom. And then we're working that Tensho idea. So we get to the guys, we'll go, if they throw that punch and you need to deal with it, and there's your block, there's your cover, what are you going to do next? What if they throw another one? And we'll tell them, just do it with the idea of moving your hands so that one, you can, if you start Tensho, do it that way. Look, 1, it allows for the palm heel. 2, allows for the koken or the knife hand. 3, allows for the takeaway, boom, and palm heel again. 4, there's your koken again, bang. So what we'll do is we'll play with the movements out of the kata as separate entities. So later on, when we need the kata for the grading, it comes together a lot easier. Okay, but I'm not going to say teach the kata. I'm not going to teach the kata too early because there's too many kata as it is. There's way too many kata. All the basic principles of Goju are found in Sanshin. Other schools emphasize other principles, but I've heard that Naihanshin serves the same purpose for Shorin school. Yeah. Well, Motobu Choki, you may have heard of Motobu Choku, everyone, but he was a real legend. He was probably genuinely one of the first real MMA fighters in Japan because he was actually in Japan doing karate, doing challenge matches in karate before Funakoshi Gichin was in Japan. And he was doing down in Osaka. And that's one of the reasons why Osaka karate was always pretty strong. But he used to go and challenge boxers and so on. Well, he was famous. He actually says, and this is why my focus now in my training, I've cut right back in certain things and I'm focused on others. But right now I'm focusing on Naihanshin because Motobu Choki said he used to do it supposedly 500 times a day, not every day, but on occasion you do 500 times a day. Well, you calculate that. If one kata takes a minute, that's 500 minutes. That's like 8 hours. Is that right? Yeah, that's just over 8 hours. So I don't really believe that he did 500 every day. I'd say there would have been days where maybe he did 500, but I'm not going to believe that he did 500 every day because it's just you don't have that much time. Unless, of course, you do it in a certain way. Boom, boom, bang, boom. And you can do it that fast. That's fine. We used to do Sanshin 1 to 10. That's a good way to do it too. You get one person do Sanshin at the normal speed, and the rest of the class will be doing it double speed, and then the next time it'll be triple speed, and then quadruple. And you get to the point you try to do 10 Sanshin in the space of time that would normally take 1. It's a really, really good way to get the flow going. So there's those sort of ways to do it. But Motobu Choki, he believed that mastery, a direct quote from an English translation, I don't know who did it, I'm sorry. Mastery of Naihanshin is mastery of karate. So, yeah, I think you're right there, Mike. Some people really took it that far. You've got to flash check the form. Does that mean when I was talking Doc Senpai, when I was talking about looking down and checking your technique, if that's what you mean, you got to flash check your form. Video is better. An instructor is better. But if you do flash check your form, you have to separate the action of checking from the action of moving. I know that my foot's go over there. So the worst thing I can do is, as I do it, just check. So I'm going to put my foot on that spot. So what I do is, as I do it, I'm going to look at, yeah, good, man, I got it. Oh, that's good. And then the next thing you know, whenever I do it, I'm bending down looking. So you've got to separate the check. And I think that's what you mean by flash check, I'm pretty sure. But you do the movement. 1, 2. Now, if I want to check my form, yep. Good. And go back. So you move, you check, you move. You never move and check at the same time. Yeah, you've got to do it in slow motion. For those who want to get in the depths of Sanshin, I found that Sanshin 3 Battles, Anatomy, Physiology. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I think I've seen that book. I didn't get it because I just don't think I was in a place to get it at the time. But yeah, that's an interesting book. Harry, we do slow motion as well. You've got to do slow motion. I think that's really valuable to do that. Yeah, look, Sanshin's just solid gold. And I think for the Goju style, the Goju side of things, Sanshin is vital. And everything they do, it's not just a kata to them. It's like Mike said, it embodies their principles of movement. It's a little bit like Tong Long Kung Fu. If you've ever seen Tong Long, everything they do is this sort of thing. And everything they do comes from that initial movement. Well, it's like that. And Tong Kung Fu is very closely related to Sanshin. No worries, Raj. It's great that you came. No, definitely not, Abel. It's 100% for everyone. In fact, it's pretty hard for kids, but it's a great way for kids to build up. So that's why we split it into parts, because it's probably too much to ask for a 7, 8, 10-year-old kid to do 100 push-ups, sit-ups, squats, and burpees without stopping. But the little kids, by dividing it into groups, into four parts, well, then it gives them an opportunity. Plus, you can start out with half a deck with no hearts, half a deck with no burpees. And then you gradually add the small burpees. Go on YouTube, Belle. There's a whole section in my YouTube channel where I've just done nothing but deck of cards from the very beginning. I started off with like 7 cards and then built up over time. Damien, good to see you, man. Down for 1 million push-ups. Well, I know that shime, we kind of have a notion. Yeah, I figured you meant Sanshin. I know that shime is very important in Goju, but I'd say it's probably even more important in Goju than for us. We don't so much have shime as we do. We don't call it shime. We call it waki o shimeru. So we talk about closing shimeru, closing the armpit like that. And also we talk about seika tanden ni chikara ireru. So when you put the energy at the seika tanden, well, it's a form of shimeru. But I'm definitely not going to pretend that the degree that which we do it is the same degree that you do it there. I think you guys take it to a higher level than anyone, actually. So anyway, look, rather than go waza no kankyu don't forget a tempo of techniques, rather than go through all 3, waza no kankyu, iki no chosei, chikara no kyojaku, tempo of technique, points of power, stress, and breath control. What I really wanted to talk about is breath control for 2 reasons. We had a young fellow, and if he's listening, good to see that you're listening, was Eddie Sorensen. This guy was good, and some Aussies will know Eddie. But Eddie was one of my uchideshi for 2 years, came and lived in, did the whole program, and he was good, and he developed strongly. And in the dojo, he was one of the best dojo fighters, even as a yellow and green belt. And then he'd get to a tournament and he'd blow up in 15 seconds. He'd get beaten quite easily. and we couldn't work out why. So I'm watching carefully. I think by the third tournament, I think something's fishy here. His preparation was outstanding. And we watched really carefully. And what he was doing, because a little bit of stage fright or a little bit of, nerves, which everyone has, what he was doing, he'd go, "Yoi, come on, tear," and he'd go, and he'd hold his breath. And for the first 15 or 20 seconds, if he knocked you out, it was all over. He was so good. But what had happened was, because he's holding his breath, after 20 seconds, and he was gone for the rest of the fight. So all we did with Eddie was teach him how to breathe. And by that, I don't mean that he didn't know how to breathe. I meant we connected his breath to his technique. Now, iki no chose, breath control, is one of the best ways you can do, especially for beginners in the early kata, and that will carry with you in all your kata, is connect the breath to the count and the movement. So if I'm going back to breaking down Taikyoku Sonoichi, let's say, I'm going back to breaking it down. 1, 2, 3. Okay, there's the technique. 2 ways to do the breath. One is you breathe consciously on every count. So if you listen to my breath this time, it's knee, oops, sorry, sun. You breathe every time. It's knee, sun. Okay, then as you start to flow it together, before you flow it together, you reduce the breath to 1. It's knee, sun. And so what you're doing now is you're consciously connecting the breath to the movement. And you'd be surprised how many people disconnect. Because when you're conscious of the breath, you're conscious of the movement. It's very hard to focus on your breath if you're thinking about what you're having for dinner in half an hour. Okay, and that is really, really vital, because a lot of people can spend years and years and years in their training thinking of everything else except what they're meant to be doing. Okay, so what you want to do is connect your breath consciously. So we can do it like this now. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I'm going to flow the 3 together. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then I'm going slowly combining the 2. 1, 2, 3, all in one. And what you're doing now, you're relaxed. Now you're thinking of the breath. And that's allowing you now to connect consciously to the movement. Where am I going wrong? Okay, then you can analyze. You do a flash check. Was it Dan who did that? But anyway, you do that flash check, then you go back again. You fix your posture. Where's my technique? Where's my arm? Okay? And then you push off the next. You have to forgive me, I have no right knee. So it's very hard for me to push off from a technique. It's really sloppy. Okay? But you get my drift is what we're talking about here is connecting consciously the breath to the movement. And then it becomes a moving meditation. It's only a moving meditation if the breath is. I was in Hong Kong last year, and I went down to Victoria Park early in the morning. The whole park is full of groups of people doing all kinds of soft martial arts. And there's one group of people that do nothing but conscious walking. It's almost funny, actually, but they literally are walking what they're doing is they're not walking, they're focusing on their breath. That becomes a form of moving meditation. Meditation, in its external form, is concentration on the breath. So if you want to turn your kata into a moving meditation, don't even think for a second it's going to happen if your brain is over here and your technique is over here and your breath is somewhere else. The way you'll do it is to connect your breath with your movement. Yeah, look, I figured you meant shime. I don't know if I got it right, Mike, but that's, if I understand, it's this concept of that sort of shime as in shimeru, squeeze and tighten, the Japanese word. Close it off, close and squeeze. In Kyokushin, we talk about waki or shimeru, but we don't go it as deep as that. I don't know if that was what you meant by shime, or you're just not saying anything to be polite because I got it so wrong. You didn't want to embarrass me. But anyway, the first battle of Sanshin Sri battle, harmonize your breath with movement. There you go. Good point. It's really, really important, but it's almost cliche. I know it sounds obvious, but the reality is it's not obvious. People literally forget to breathe. And once we got Eddie's breath right, I mean, he was killing it. He became a really strong, successful tournament fighter. So these 3 points are really, really important. Waza no kankyu, the timing of technique, okay, or the tempo of technique. And there's another thing that I wanted to talk about briefly, if I can. That kata reminds me of Jeff Barnes. Who's Jeff Barnes? Okay, there's another thing I wanted to talk about, and that is this: timing, tempo, and rhythm. The easy way that I try to teach it anyway for the students is this. Rhythm is timing within yourself. Timing is rhythm between you and someone else. Okay, and the tempo is simply the beat of the movement. So when we talk about rhythm, we talk about brats. Brats. Remember brats. If you're not sure of brats, let me know. Brats, the acronym you need to develop good technique. But there we talk about the T in brats is timing. It's also rhythm. So it used to be balance, rhythm, accuracy, timing, and speed. But I realized that rhythm and timing are actually pretty well the same. So now the brats is balance, relaxation, accuracy, timing, and speed, because timing in yourself is rhythm. Timing in relation to someone else is timing. So you time the technique according to them. The rhythm that you develop in relation to them is timing. The rhythm you develop in relation to your own body, all the body parts in the right place at the right time, all that sort of thing is rhythm. Okay, so the tempo of technique, all right, waza no kankyu, has various meanings. At first, it means to get the rhythm of the body in the right place at the right time. So when you practice a technique, when you're doing the kata by yourself, the rhythm is getting all the parts of the body in. And a good way to teach too, if you're a teacher just getting going, I know Rochelle's in that position at the moment. As a general rule, a powerful, strong karate person will time the upper body with the lower body so that some techniques will be led by the lower body, some techniques will be led by the upper body. For functional purposes, always lead the technique with your legs. So if I want to turn around, I'm just trying to think of a good example, but if I want to turn around to the left, clearly under stress in a non-cooperative situation where someone is completely non-cooperative, then you need everything to be working as one. But to develop that ability, you kind of separate your lower body and your upper body. So you move your legs first, then your upper body. So that's why you break the technique down. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Like that. You separate the legs and the arms because the best way to learn the technique is to learn to move the legs first. Later on, as you get better, the arm and the leg move together. Okay? But for initial purposes, and that's especially for you, Rach, you want to teach and work on it your own. You work on it yourself too, by the way. Everyone can. Separate, particularly in a new kata, separate the leg movement from the upper body movement. Okay, so back to waza no kankyu, the timing of technique. So or the tempo of technique. When you are working on the technique yourself, The timing is the rhythm within your own body. And you can relax that. So you can be very rigid, which is okay to start with. 1, 2, and then you can start to flow it up. You feel that rhythm. And if you've developed the right neurological change through the body by developing good technique, 1, 2, and then as you quicken it, boom. If your timing is out and you've always had the wrong habit of moving the upper body first, well, then the whole technique's going to be thrown off, you see. But if you get it where you move the bottom half first, when you put them back together, what used to be 1 and 2 then becomes 1, 2. They both happen within a tenth of a second. The neurological order is exact, but it's just happening much quicker. So instead of going 1, 2, now it starts to go. And what happens is you get the same firing sequence. It just happens quicker. But because you got it right from the start, you're not going to have a problem with it. Does that make sense? That doesn't make sense. But the tempo technique, there's a tempo of technique within yourself. And that is the timing of the different parts of the body and how they connect to each other in the neurological firing order. Okay? We talk about that hierarchy technique. You know, that hierarchy of dominance, which is more a biological thing or an anthropological thing. Okay? But I use the hierarchy of dominance because it is so valuable as a teaching tool that different things fire off at different times. And if the hierarchy is wrong, you have no foundation. That's the tempo of technique within yourself. Then you transfer that to the timing between you and yourself. So the tempo of technique in yourself is rhythm within your body, all the body parts in the right place at the right time. The tempo technique in relation to someone else is the timing of your technique in relation to them. And that's where you take the kata to another level. So if you're using, for example, the 7 stages of kumite development, which works just as well for kata, you might practice 50 reps of a kata focused on nothing more than good straight back and gaze. Okay, you can go through the whole hierarchy of the 7 stages one at a time. And gradually what will happen is you'll get to where you're actually doing it in relation to your opponent, even when you're doing kata. I remember in 1980, I get carried away sometimes. I don't really like to talk about my tournament history and so on, but in 1980, when I fought in the Australian Championships, I was living at a place in Australia called Thursday Island. If you're overseas and you Google Thursday Island, you'll see it was heaven on earth. It's up in the Torres Strait between Australia and New Guinea, and the best fishing in the world if you're into fishing. And I didn't eat meat in those days, but when I got to TI, I started to eat fish because you couldn't really it's an isolated area. There's Australia, and that's where TI is, up between Torres Strait, between Papua New Guinea and Australia. I lived there for a couple of years, and Masoyama was coming out to Australia in 1980, and I was being flown down to interpret for him. And they got a message literally 3 days before that he couldn't come. He had a problem with his right knee, I believe. So they said, look, we've got the ticket. If you want to come, you can still come. I said, well, I'll come. I said, well, I may as well compete. If he's not going to be there, I don't need to do anything. So I'll compete. And I just competed in the tournament. But all I'd been doing, because I had no one to train with, was I do a kata, push-up, sit-up, squats. Kata, push-up, sit-up, squats. Kata, push-up, sit-up, squats. And I do that usually an hour to an hour and a half every day. And sometimes I do it down at the wharf, would you believe, because I was a customs officer. I worked for Australian Customs. And so I got transferred to Thursday Island, and I'd be down the wharf, and it was beautiful. The water was crystal clear. It was just so beautiful. You can't Torres Strait, beautiful. But anyway, I'd be doing kata, push-ups, sit-ups, squats. Then I ended up going to the nationals, and look, I'm still a little dirty because I came off the semi-final. But my opponent, his opponent had a bad knee, and he knew that, so he did a spin back kick into his knee and dislocated his knee. And so his semi-final lasted 15 seconds. And I got up and fought this big, strong lad named Clint McIntyre, a really good guy. And we went 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes. So we fought 4 3-minute rounds, and I got the decision. And then as I came off the stage, the guy who was running the tournament, whose student was my opponent in the final, says, "You're up for the final." I literally said, "Can I have 30 seconds to get my breath back?" He said, "No, if you're not back on the stage in 30 seconds, I'll disqualify you." And I was too young and naive to call his bluff, because I'm sure if I said, "Well, no, I don't care, I'm going to take 5 minutes," if he tried to disqualify me, he would have got mugged. But anyway, and then that final then went 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes, and I lost a close decision. But anyway, the point was, when I look back on the video, a lot of my movements were so refined in terms of kata, because I hadn't been doing a lot of kumite. I'd been doing kata movements, so my neurological pathways were really finely tuned. I was amazed at how I felt in that. And I'd be doing stuff to guys, boom, and I'd be literally doing this sort of thing, and bang, and I'd sweep them, and it was just crazy to be doing that in a full contact tournament. So that's the value of these multiple repetitions. You really can. People who say, kata are useless. I've talked about my buddy Nick Hughes, who took out the 22 skinheads in London. I'll tell you another funny story about Nick Hughes, which was reminded. I was reminded of it just on the weekend. I caught up with my buddy Geordie, and Nick used to go into he'd work security at night time in some of the worst places in town, and he used to go into security and he'd go, "Okay, the next fight I'm going to do Saiha." Whether it was 1 or 3 guys, his next fight he'd be setting up for Saiha, and he'd be moving bang, and Geordie reminded me once he tried to have a fight with Nai Hanshin. So as you know, with Nai Hanshin, the first step is you step to the side, hit it with a back fist. And it was so funny, because what was happening was Nick is trying to set this guy up for Nai Hanshin. So instead of shaping up like this, he's shaping up like this, ready to step in with Kiba and him with a back fist. He's going to go boom, bang, pull him in and pull him across like this. But every time he line him up, the guy had changed angles. I think the guy thought he was going to kick him. So the guy had changed angles. So he's constantly having to try and get him in his crosshairs from a Nai Hanshin sort of position. And finally caught the guy, bang, and cracked him with a back fist, and that was the end of that. But isn't that funny? I just think it was really quite funny. So that's one way that you need to really think about the timing of technique. The tempo of technique in you is your rhythm, the neurological pathways firing at the right place at the right time, your hierarchies of dominance. What comes first? What's the most important thing? When I move from an instructing viewpoint, you have to move the legs first. Once you get that, then the difference between, there's the body there, the difference between that and then that is, the only difference is the timing squeezes down to virtually nothing. Initially, the timing between the lower body and the upper body can be completely separate, doesn't matter. But when you get the technique right, they seem as though they're one. And in fact, it'll get to the point where with a technique, a punch, the hand actually arrives at a minuscule fraction of a second before the foot is fully committed. So that way your weight won't hit the foot, then the hand. What will happen is the weight will be in the hand at the point of impact. So that's the rhythm of the tempo of technique in your body. And then when you get that, then the name of the game is the timing with your partner. And that's where the points of power stress becomes very important. Nah, look, I don't even think videos were invented. There may have been videos around. I'll have to have a look, see if I can find that video. Nothing to be proud of, I tell you. I just felt when I was doing the movements how it just felt uncannily like I was in the middle of a kata. When asked what special training did to win the junior by Japanese media, Anton Gasink said judo. I met Anton Gasink, you know. He's a very cool guy. I met him in 2000, actually, just before he passed away. I think a couple of years before he passed away. Pretty sure Hajime Kazumi attributed his tournament success to. Well, he may have, and Alan, I could be guessing, and I'd like to talk to him about it. But I know since he's pulled out of tournaments, he's gone very deeply into yoga. I'm worried about him because I don't know that his yoga teacher was the best thing for him. It's not really what he needed, but it's working for him, I guess. Leave that. But he's right into kata, and he's doing a lot of bunkai and kata now. So I don't know. I know his dojo, and I know Kazumi's instructor very well, and they weren't doing a lot of kata. He was doing a lot of iken stuff, you know, taiki-ken, that sort of thing, but he wasn't doing a lot of kata per se. I wouldn't be surprised if he says that now, that it may have been something on his mind, because since he's retired from tournaments, he's virtually gone, you know, I'd say 80% into kata, which is great. And that's, for someone like him, I think his body, he's still quite young, but when you thrash your body that hard the way he did, I think when you turn 60, your body's going to be a little sore and broken. Chikara no kyojaku, the tempo, points of power stress, chikara no kyojaku. Okay, that's what that means, chikara, kyojaku, strong and weak. That's what it literally means. What did Funakoshi sensei say about chikara no kyojaku? Light and heavy application of strength. He called it light and heavy application of strength. Well, I called it the points of power stress. I ended up having to translate those for Salso, because when they were initially translating this is karate, the guy had no precedent, so he had to make it up as he goes. And a lot of this stuff is really difficult unless you're experienced in karate. But he was a translator, not a karateka. But anyway, I translated waza no kankyu, tempo of techniques, chikara no kyojaku, which is points of power stress. So what that means is sometimes there's the technique, the power. What makes power? Power is a combination of speed and strength. Okay, and there's a continuum. You have this continuum. Get rid of the map of Australia, decrease the size, pull the pen out. And you have a continuum between strength and speed. And power is a combination of strength and speed. Kinetic energy, half mass times velocity squared, shows that the more you move towards speed, you get an exponential increase in power. But sometimes there is no room for speed. In other words, it can be a holding situation where you're completely held down and there is no room for speed. To develop speed, you need space. If your space is gone, you have no speed. So you need power, and you need just enough power and leverage to change your position to create the space. Then you can hit with speed. So the continuum of power, okay, power in Japanese is that kanji there. The continuum of power between strength, chikara, and speed is what they call kyojaku, or let's see if I can remember the kanji. Kyo, forgot the kanji for jaku. Strength and weakness is literally what it means. So finding the power in your kata, that's, for example, when you have a ki and a kata, you have the explosive combination the speed and strength. But sometimes when you have a two-arm movement or a slow movement, why is it slow? It's because it's using more strength than speed. It may be, for example, we always say in training at the dojo, when two hands come together in a kata, you're breaking someone's balance. So, for example, you pull the hands like that. You pull the hands together. What are we doing there? Someone comes, attacks you. You move off, block. And now what I'm doing is I'm grabbing them and breaking their balance. And it may be you break their balance over their leg, over your leg. It may be you're turning, breaking their balance over the throat. Or it may be you're breaking their balance by throwing the kick as you pull. So as a fundamental principle that you can use in your training, whenever your hands come together, you're breaking balance. For example, you come around in pin and fire, boom, hands are together. There's your block. There's your block. And that's a really, don't underestimate people that stupid cross blocks that don't work. They're really dumb. This is one of the most beautiful, powerful blocks you could ever do. It's got nothing to do with the cross. How do you block? You block with a line. How do you hit? You hit with a point. Okay? And the movements are based on a circle and point. Okay? Remember, you block with a line. So when you're doing this cross block, it's not about this point between the two hands. It's about from here all the way down to here. You're creating a long line. That's what makes it beautiful. So you come around, boom, boom. That line there actually is a really powerful block. It doesn't matter if they throw a punch here, punch there, punch there, punch. Boom, it covers them all. And then the hands pull them off balance like that. 1, 2, and you pull them off balance. So just as a general principle, hands come together in a kata, but it'll often slow. That's the tempo of the technique, the points of power stress, where you've got times where you're using more power, more strength and speed. Other times you're moving more speed than strength, but the outcome is optimal depending on the situation. Go and Ju, yes. Harmony of opposites. It's common idea in Okinawan karate across different schools. That's interesting. Hankuryu. Goju. Oops, turn my camera. There's Goju, I think. Could be wrong, could be right. But anyway, the Ju part of the same as the Ju part in the Ju part of Goju is the same as the Ju part in Judo. Okay? And Go means hard. So it means a balance between hard and soft. And that's Goju. And that's and Mike is a high-ranking Shihan in Goju karate. So what he's saying there is true in that, in a way, I think it was a really cool word to take. It actually comes from, you can correct me, Mike, but the words Go and Ju were found in a text that came from China. I think Miyagi Chojun took it from there. Yawara, that's what it is. And I think it's really valuable to take note of what Mike said there, because the reality is that every style contains Go and Ju, and perhaps every kata contains Go and Ju, and that is the points of power stress. Kichikara no kyo, jaku, kyo strong, jaku soft, weak, hard, soft. Okay, so that's really quite valuable. Francis, j'aime bien vos explications. You like my explanation I'm just guessing my French is a bit rusty. I like my explanation of the movements and the meaning in the kata. Is that correct? Thank you. Was the Kempo Haku. So anyway, that's just a brief overview of the 3 points and why they're so important. Okay, because when you take a kata and you learn a kata, you go super slow, you break down every technique, okay, and you start with breath control. It's not necessarily the most important thing because you can still knock someone out holding your breath. You can still knock someone out when you're tired, okay? So Sosa used to say that the points of power stress. And then he said that what comes next is the concept of the point on the circle and point. So the circular motions ending in the point. In other words, he's saying just knock them out. You get it right on that point and knock them out. So that's Solsai's interpretation. But anyway, they're the three really important major principles of kata. And like Solsai said, they originate in Okinawa. They come from even Funakoshi Gichin in his book described them as the 3 cardinal points, which he described as the fast and slow movements of techniques, which I did those translations for Solsai, but the tempo of technique. And then what he described, I think, is the light and heavy application of strength. I call, light and heavy, kyojaku, strong, weak. I call the points of power stress. And then what he called the expansion and contraction of the body is the breath, okay? That's a really interesting thing, this whole expansion and contraction. We've gone through that before, I know we have, because the whole idea of boom, expansion and contraction, and using around the circle point with the arcs of tension across the body. But anyway, so there you have it, guys. Thank you very much. Went a little longer than I intended. I appreciate you coming. Make sure you subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Leave a thumbs up if you have subscribed. Leave a message. Been so many messages lately, and I'm getting to them. Mike, I saw your message, and I will answer it. I try to answer every single message. If it's just us, I'll just do a little bit of a thumbs up or something. But if it's a message with a genuine content, I'll very well do my best to answer it all. And what advice do you give for those who come from another style martial arts to learn Kyokushin? Just find a good teacher and train hard. Merci, Francis. Thank you again for coming again. But Abel, look, that's what I do. If you're not in Patreon, join Patreon, because Patreon's, you've got some great stuff coming your way very quickly, including discounts on the books and everything like that. Rochelle, thank you. Alan Lloyd, thank you. Us, Daniel, good. Daniel, good on you, man. Thanks. Paul Kniep, good. Dankeschön, my friend. Aus Deutschland. Marco, thank you. Good on you. Mike, Us, thank you. Good to see you, man. Bogdan, Us, thank you. Fredrik from Sweden, thank you for today. Thank you to Clarence, South Africa, always learning a ton. Thank you very much. Francis, merci, mon ami. Merci beaucoup. And by all means, come and join the Patreon family. If you're not in Patreon, sign up. It's great stuff, and it makes a difference. Do you know that the Patreon family is what's keeping me alive? But if you're not sure, let me see if I can find a link for you, Francis. Let me just quickly see if I can find a link for the Patreon. I'm having trouble finding that. Here we go. Might have it here. Let's see. There we go. Let me just give you this link. Oops. Aoyama-san. Aoyama-san. 来てくださいましてありがとうございます。どこの人ですか？青山さん。Off to practice kata. Thanks. Good. Good, Rob. Thanks. I made sure I included Tasmania in my little map of Australia before. I'm just quickly grabbing this link for Francis who wants to know about Patreon. Will this come through? No, it's not coming through. But anyway, look, I'll just type it here quickly for you. This is for information about the Patreon family. If you're not 100% sure, guys, get along, join. Those people that are members, I appreciate your support. It's really making all the difference in the world, because this virus isn't going away for long, going away very soon. 青山さんはどこの人ですか？やっぱり松井派よね。Matsui is a great technician, that's for sure. He's, I think, in my opinion, the best technician of all. He was my favorite technician. There's no doubt about that. He was great. Okay, guys, I better leave it there. We're just babbling on. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Arigato. Dankeschön. Danke vel. Tag. Merci. Arigato gozaimashita. Thank you very much. See ya.